Talk. Maynooth. 1844 to 1845. When I consider how munificently the colleges of Cambridge and Oxford are endowed, and with what pomp religion and learning are there surrounded, when I remember what was the faith of Edward III, and of Henry VI, of Margaret of Anjou and Margaret of Richmond, of William of Wykeham and William of Waynflete, of Archbishop Chichele and Cardinal Wolsey, when I remember what we have taken from the Roman Catholics, King's College, New College, Christ Church, my own Trinity, and when I look at the miserable Dotheboys Hall which we have given them in exchange, I feel, I must own, less proud than I could wish of being a Protestant and a Cambridge man. Macaulay. Irish policy of conciliation. In pursuit of the policy of conciliation with which he was now endeavouring to counter O'Connell, Peel opened to his colleagues in 1844 a plan for dealing with the sum annually voted by Parliament to the seminary for the training of Catholic clergy at Maynooth. The original grant was made by the Irish Parliament, Protestant as it was, and was accepted even by anti-Catholic leaders after 1800 as virtually a portion of the legislative union with Ireland. Peel's proposal, by making an annual grant permanent, by tripling the amount, by incorporating the trustees, established a new and closer connection between the state and the college. It was one of the boldest things he ever did. What Lord Aberdeen wrote to Madame de Lieven in 1852 was hardly a whit less true in 1845. There is more intense bigotry in England at this moment than in any other country in Europe. Peel said to Mr. Gladstone at the beginning of 1845, I wish to speak without any reserve, and I ought to tell you, I think it will very probably be fatal to the government. He explained that he did not know whether the feeling among Goulburn's constituents, the University of Cambridge, might not be too strong for him, that in Scotland, as he expected, there would be a great opposition, and he seemed to think that from the Church also there might be great resistance, and he said the proceedings in the Diocese of Exeter showed a very sensitive state of the public mind. During the whole of 1844 the project simmered. At a very early moment Mr. Gladstone grew uneasy. He did not condemn the policy in itself, but whatever else might be said, it was in direct antagonism to the principle elaborately expounded by him only 6 years before, as the sacred rule and obligation between a Christian state and Christian churches. He had marked any departure from that rule as a sign of social declension, as a descent from a higher state of society to a lower, as a note in the ebb and flow of national life. Was it not inevitable, then, that his official participation in the extension of the public endowment of Maynooth would henceforth give to everyone the right to say of him, that man cannot be trusted? He was not indeed committed, by anything that he had written, to the extravagant position that the peace of society should be hazarded because it could no longer restore its ancient theories of religion, but was he not right in holding it indispensable that any vote or further declaration from him on these matters should be given under circumstances free from all just suspicions of his disinterestedness and honesty? 167. In view of these approaching difficulties upon Maynooth, on July 12 he made a truly singular tender to the head of the government. He knew Peel to be disposed to entertain the question of a renewal of the public relations with the papal court at Rome, first to be opened by indirect communications through the British envoy at Florence or Naples. What I have to say, Mr. Gladstone now wrote to the Prime Minister, is that if you and Lord Aberdeen should think fit to appoint me to Florence or Naples, and to employ me in any such communications as those to which I have referred, I am at your disposal. Of this startling offer to transform himself from President of the Board of Trade into Vatican envoy, Mr. Gladstone left his own later judgment upon record. Here it is, and no more needs to be said upon it. About the time of my resignation on account of the contemplated increase of the grant to the College of Maynooth, I became possessed with the idea that there was about to be a renewal in some shape of our diplomatic relations with the See of Rome, and I believe that I committed the gross error of tendering myself to Sir Robert Peel to fill the post of envoy. I have difficulty at this date, 1894, in conceiving by what obliquity of view I could have come to imagine that this was a rational or in any way excusable proposal, and this, although I vaguely think my friend James Hope had some hand in it, seems to show me now that there existed in my mind a strong element of fanaticism. I believe that I left it to Sir Peel to make me any answer or none as he might think fit, and he with great propriety chose the latter alternative. Intention to resign. In the autumn of 1844, the Prime Minister understood that if he proceeded with the Maynooth increase, he would lose Mr. Gladstone. The loss, Peel said to Graham, was serious, and on every account to be regretted, but no hope of averting it would justify the abandonment of a most important part of their Irish policy. Meanwhile, in the midst of heavy labours on the tariff and preparation for the budget of 1845, Mr. Gladstone was sharply perturbed, as some of his letters to Mrs. Gladstone show. Whitehall, November 22, 44. It is much beyond my expectation that Newman should have taken my letter so kindly. It seemed to me so like the operation of a clumsy, bungling surgeon upon a sensitive part. I cannot well comment upon his meaning, for as you may easily judge, what with Cabinet, Board, and Oak Farm, I have enough in my head today, and the subject is a fine and subtle one. But I may perhaps be able to think upon it tonight. In the meantime I think yours is a very just conjectural sketch. We have not got in Cabinet today to the really pinching part of the discussion, the Roman Catholic religious education. That comes on Monday. My mind does not waver, pray for me, that I may do right. I have an appointment with Peel tomorrow, and I rather think he means to say something to me on the question. November 23. You will see that whatever turns up, I am sure to be in the wrong. An invitation to Windsor for us came this morning, and I am sorry to say one including Sunday, November 30th to December 2nd. I have had a long battle with Peel on the matters of my office, not another syllable. So far as it goes, this tends to make me think he does not calculate on any change in me, yet on the whole I lean the other way. Manning comes up on Monday. November 25. Events travel fast and not slow. My opinion is that I shall be out on Friday evening. We have discussed Maynooth today. An intermediate letter which Sir James Graham has to write to Ireland for information causes thus much of delay. I have told them that if I go, I shall go on the ground of what is required by my personal character, and not because my mind is made up that the course which they propose can be avoided, far less because I consider myself bound to resist it. I had the process of this declaration to repeat. I think they were prepared for it, but they would not assume that it was to be, and rather proceeded as if I had never said a word before upon the subject. It was painful, but not so painful as the last time, and by an effort I had altogether prevented my mind from brooding upon it beforehand. At this moment, 6:15, I am sure they are talking about it over the way. I am going to dine with Sir Peel. Under these circumstances the Windsor visit will be strange enough. In the meantime my father writes to me most urgently, desiring me to come to Liverpool. I hope for some further light from him on Wednesday morning. November 26. I have no more light to throw upon the matters which I mentioned yesterday. The dinner at Peel's went off as well as could be expected. I did not sit near him. Lord Aberdeen was with me today, and said very kindly it must be prevented. But I think it cannot, and friendly efforts to prolong the day only aggravate the pain. Manning was with me all this morning. He is well, and is to come back tomorrow. January 9, 45. Another postponement, but our explanations were as satisfactory as could possibly be made under such circumstances. The tone and manner as kind as at any time, nothing like murmur. At the same time Peel said he thought it right to intimate a belief that the government might very probably be shipwrecked upon the Maynooth question, partly in connection with my retirement, but also as he intimated from the uncertainty whether there might not be a very strong popular feeling against it. He takes upon himself all responsibility for any inconvenience to which the government may possibly be put from the delay and a consequent abrupt retirement, and says I have given him the fullest and fairest notice. I saw Manning for 2 hours this morning, and let the cat out of the bag to him in part. Have a note from Lockhart saying the Bishop of London had sent his chaplain to Murray to express high approval of the article on Ward, and enclosing the vulgar addition of £63. At Windsor Castle. Windsor Castle, January 10. 1. owing to the Spanish ambassador's not appearing, Lady Littleton was suddenly invited, and fell to my lot to hand in and sit by, which was very pleasant. I am, as you know, a shockingly bad witness to looks, but she appeared to me, I confess, a little worn and aged. She ought to have at least 2 months' holiday every year. After dinner the Queen inquired as usual about you, and rather particularly with much interest about Lady Glynn. I told her plainly all I could. This rather helped the Queen through the conversation, as it kept me talking, and she was evidently hard-pressed at the gaps. Then we went to cards, and played commerce. Fortunately I was never the worst hand, and so was not called upon to pay, for I had locked up my purse before going to dinner, but I found I had 1 2s. 2d, at the end, 8d. Of which was paid me by the Prince. I mean to keep the 2d. Piece, the 6d. I cannot identify, accordingly, unless I lose it again tonight. I had rather a nice conversation with him about the International Copyright Convention with Prussia. Whitehall, January 11th. I came back from Windsor this morning, very kindly used. The Queen mentioned particularly that you were not asked on account of presumed inconvenience, and sent me a private print of the Prince of Wales, and on my thanking for it through Lady Littleton, another of the Princess. Also she brought the little people through the corridor yesterday after luncheon, where they behaved very well, and she made them come and shake hands with me. The Prince of Wales has a very good countenance, the baby I should call a very fine child indeed. The Queen said, after your own you must think them dwarfs, but I answered that I did not think the Princess Royal short as compared with Willie. We had more cards last evening, Lady made more blunders and was laughed at as usual. January 13th. I think there will certainly be at least 1 cabinet more in the end of the week. My position is what would commonly be called uncomfortable. I do not know how long the Maynooth matter may be held over. I may remain a couple of months, or only a week, may go at any time at 24 hours' notice. I think on the whole it is an even chance whether I go before or after the meeting of Parliament, so that I am unfeignedly put to obey the precept of our Lord, take no thought for the morrow will take thought for the things of itself. I am sorry that a part of the inconvenience falls on your innocent head. I need not tell you the irksomeness of business is much increased, and one's purpose is unmanned by this indefiniteness. Still, having very important matters in preparation, I must not give any signs of inattention or indifference. Cabinet Room, January 14th. I have no news to give you about myself, but continue to be quite in the dark. There is a certain Maynooth bill in preparation, and when that appears for decision my time will probably have come, but I am quite ignorant when it will be forthcoming. I am to be with Peel tomorrow morning, but I think on board of trade business only. Graham has just told us that the draft of the Maynooth bill will be ready on Saturday, but it cannot, I think, be considered before the middle of next week at the earliest. January 15th. The nerves are a little unruly on a day like this between official life and death. So much of feeling mixes with the more abstract question, which would be easily disposed of if it stood alone. Diary. It was February 3rd before Mr. Gladstone wrote his last note from his desk at the Board of Trade, thanking the Prime Minister for 1,000 acts of kindness which he trusted himself not readily to forget. The feeling of the occasion he described to Manning.